What if someone promised heaven itself in exchange for marching toward war? What if salvation required abandoning everything familiar and risking death willingly? Would you follow faith, fear, hope, or something far more dangerous? In medieval Europe, thousands faced exactly that extraordinary choice one day. Farmers, nobles, priests, and warriors answered a call echoing everywhere. They believed history, destiny, and faith were summoning them forward. Homes were abandoned and possessions sold for a distant sacred mission. Families embraced uncertain futures beneath tears, prayers, and desperate hope. The destination was Jerusalem, the city revered by countless believers worldwide. Yet the road toward holiness would become stained with unimaginable suffering. Millions of lives would eventually be touched by the coming conflict. Entire kingdoms would rise, fall, and transform because of these events. At first, few could imagine the scale of consequences ahead. They saw only faith, purpose, and promises beyond earthly existence. The deeper reality remained hidden behind idealism and powerful emotions. Jerusalem appeared as more than a city within countless imaginations. It represented destiny, redemption, and divine meaning beyond ordinary life. Reaching it became a mission capable of consuming entire generations. Parents said farewell, uncertain whether loved ones would ever return. Hope and fear traveled together along every road heading eastward. The movement grew larger than anyone initially expected or controlled. Soon, vast numbers marched toward a future nobody fully understood. They believed they were changing Jerusalem and protecting sacred values. In truth, they were about to change the entire world. The story truly accelerated when Pope Urban II addressed a massive gathering. His words ignited emotions powerful enough to move entire populations. Faith, fear, and urgency combined into something difficult resisting completely. Many listeners believed they were hearing a divine calling personally. The response spread rapidly across towns, villages, and noble courts. People from different backgrounds united around a shared objective suddenly. Crosses were stitched onto garments as symbols of commitment publicly. Those symbols carried meaning far beyond ordinary clothing decorations alone. They represented sacrifice, duty, and willingness facing mortal danger. Knights prepared weapons while priests offered blessings before departure solemnly. The atmosphere blended spiritual devotion with growing anticipation remarkably well. Few participants truly understood what awaited beyond familiar territories. Vast groups began moving eastward across enormous distances together steadily. Organizing such a journey created challenges on an unprecedented scale. Supplies, transportation, and survival became constant concerns for leaders. Mountains, rivers, and hostile environments tested determination relentlessly throughout. Not everyone who started the journey would complete it successfully. Disease and exhaustion claimed lives long before reaching battlefields. Hunger became an enemy as dangerous as any opposing army. Morale fluctuated while reality challenged idealistic expectations repeatedly ahead. Yet momentum continued carrying thousands toward the Holy Land regardless. The crusading movement had become larger than individual ambitions entirely. It now possessed its own force, direction, and historical momentum. And soon that momentum would collide with brutal reality directly. The journey quickly became far harsher than most participants expected initially. Faith provided motivation, but faith alone could not create food. Long distances punished bodies already weakened by relentless travel continuously. Hunger spread through camps, testing resolve and patience every day. Disease followed closely, exploiting exhaustion and poor living conditions. Many discovered that idealism struggles against physical suffering intensely. Companions helped one another survive challenges impossible facing alone. Yet every loss reminded them of the growing cost involved. Dreams of glory gradually encountered realities far less inspiring. Eventually, crusaders entered regions unfamiliar in culture and geography. Encounters with local communities revealed a more complicated world. The conflict was never as simple as many imagined originally. Then came direct confrontations with opposing forces defending their territories. Tension transformed into violence as diplomacy gave way to warfare. Swords, arrows, and fear dominated the battlefield environment immediately. Combat exposed participants to realities impossible understanding from speeches. Every victory carried losses that lingered beyond the fighting itself. Every defeat intensified desperation among exhausted crusading forces significantly. Many warriors witnessed scenes remaining in memory for lifetimes afterward. The line between heroism and tragedy often blurred amid chaos. Battlefields revealed humanity at both its bravest and darkest moments. Survivors continued forward because turning back seemed equally impossible now. The goal remained Jerusalem despite every hardship encountered along the way. And reaching that city would unleash events far more dramatic. After immense hardship, Jerusalem finally appeared on the horizon before them. Many crusaders reportedly wept upon seeing their sacred destination at last. Years of sacrifice suddenly seemed meaningful within that emotional moment. Yet reaching Jerusalem and capturing it were entirely different challenges. The city remained protected by strong defenses and determined defenders. Hope surged among attackers while anxiety spread throughout the city. Preparations for a siege began immediately on both sides simultaneously. Every participant understood the coming struggle would prove decisive. Neither side expected an easy outcome from the confrontation ahead. The Holy City became the center of competing visions and beliefs. For many, defeat seemed unthinkable despite overwhelming obstacles present. Determination intensified as spiritual significance magnified every decision greatly. Siege camps formed around Jerusalem, creating pressure from all directions. Resources became scarce while temperatures and conditions tested endurance severely. Hunger and thirst threatened attackers almost as much as defenders. Maintaining morale required constant effort under increasingly difficult circumstances. Yet neither side showed willingness to surrender the city easily. The siege evolved into a contest of patience and resilience. Massive siege engines were constructed in preparation for final assaults. Every hammer strike echoed anticipation of violence soon approaching rapidly. Defenders watched carefully from the walls, preparing their responses strategically. The atmosphere became charged with expectation, fear, and determination together. Everyone sensed that history stood on the edge of transformation. Soon Jerusalem would witness one of its darkest chapters ever. The final assault began as siege towers approached Jerusalem's formidable defenses. Months of preparation now converged into a single decisive confrontation. Both attackers and defenders understood the stakes could not rise higher. Arrows filled the air while desperate resistance continued relentlessly throughout. Every section of wall became a battleground demanding extraordinary courage. Eventually, breaches appeared, opening pathways into the city itself. Crusader forces poured through, transforming siege into urban warfare immediately. The struggle moved from walls into crowded streets and sacred spaces. What followed remains among history's most debated and emotional events. For many crusaders, victory represented fulfillment of a sacred mission. Years of sacrifice seemed rewarded by reaching their ultimate objective. Joy, relief, and religious devotion overwhelmed countless participants emotionally. Yet victory carried another side far darker and deeply troubling. Civilians and defenders experienced fear, chaos, and devastating consequences instead. The city witnessed suffering that would shape memories for generations. Different communities remembered these events through dramatically different perspectives afterward. One group's triumph often becomes another group's enduring tragedy, sadly. Jerusalem embodied that painful truth more clearly than most places. Prayers filled sacred sites as survivors attempted understanding what occurred. Some saw divine favor, while others saw irreversible devastation unfolding. The city had changed hands, but deeper conflicts remained unresolved. Lasting peace proved far more difficult than achieving military success. New tensions emerged from the very victory many celebrated enthusiastically. And those tensions would eventually produce a powerful response elsewhere. Victory in Jerusalem did not end conflict as many had expected. Instead, it created conditions for an extraordinary new leader emerging. His name would become legendary across both East and West. Saladin rose during a period marked by political fragmentation everywhere. Different rulers pursued competing interests rather than shared strategic goals. Such divisions weakened collective resistance against external threats considerably. Saladin understood unity could accomplish what rivalry consistently prevented. His approach combined patience, diplomacy, and military skill effectively. Gradually, he earned trust from allies and respect from opponents. Leadership requires more than strength. It requires vision and discipline. Salahuddin demonstrated both while navigating complex regional politics carefully. His influence expanded steadily across territories once divided by competition. Armies gathered under banners representing a broader shared purpose now. Momentum shifted as confidence grew among those supporting his leadership. Many began believing change was not only possible but inevitable. Military preparation intensified alongside diplomatic efforts across the region. Every decision reflected long-term thinking rather than impulsive reactions alone. That patience would eventually produce results, altering historical trajectories significantly. Stories of Salahuddin spread beyond borders, inspiring admiration widely. Even future rivals would acknowledge qualities they respected deeply afterward. A confrontation with Crusader states now appeared increasingly unavoidable ahead. Both sides sensed a decisive chapter approaching rapidly within history. Jerusalem remained the symbol standing at the center of everything, and Salahuddin intended to reclaim that symbol for his people. Years of tension finally moved toward a decisive military confrontation ahead. Both sides understood the coming battle could reshape regional power dramatically. The stage was set near Hattin under unforgiving summer conditions. Crusader forces marched across dry terrain facing severe environmental challenges. Heat weakened men and animals long before combat officially began. Every mile consumed precious energy, water, and morale relentlessly. Salahuddin recognized these vulnerabilities and planned accordingly with patience. Strategic positioning gradually restricted enemy options while increasing pressure. The battlefield became a trap, closing tighter with each movement. Combat erupted as exhausted forces struggled against overwhelming disadvantages simultaneously. Confusion spread rapidly, while formations weakened under constant attacks. Hattin became one of the most significant battles of the Crusades. Defeat shattered Crusader military strength across the region substantially afterward. Momentum shifted decisively toward Salahuddin and his growing coalition completely. The path toward Jerusalem suddenly opened wider than ever before. News of victory spread quickly, inspiring supporters throughout surrounding territories. Confidence surged as Salahuddin advanced toward the holy city steadily. Jerusalem once again became the focus of global attention intensely. Unlike earlier conquests, negotiations played an important role this time. Efforts sought reducing destruction while securing control of the city. Eventually, Jerusalem returned to Muslim rule after decades of Crusader governance. The event shocked Europe and transformed political calculations everywhere immediately. For many observers, it seemed history had suddenly reversed direction. Yet an even larger chapter was about to begin soon. The loss of Jerusalem sent shockwaves throughout Europe almost immediately afterward. Leaders recognized the event as both political and spiritual crisis. A new crusade emerged, attracting some of Europe's greatest rulers. Among them stood Richard the Lionheart, England's legendary warrior king. Richard possessed courage, charisma, and remarkable battlefield leadership abilities. His reputation spread quickly, inspiring confidence among Crusader forces. Massive preparations began as armies and fleets assembled for war. Europe hoped military strength could reverse recent setbacks successfully. Richard's arrival transformed expectations across both sides of conflict. Campaigns followed, featuring intense battles and strategic maneuvering repeatedly. Neither side found victory easy despite talented leadership involved. The struggle evolved into a contest between extraordinary historical figures. Richard and Salahuddin became symbols extending beyond military achievements alone. Each represented values admired by supporters and respected opponents. Their rivalry fascinated observers then and continues fascinating historians today. Surprisingly, warfare did not eliminate opportunities for diplomacy entirely. Messages and negotiations occasionally crossed lines separating opposing camps. Mutual respect emerged despite profound disagreements and ongoing conflict. Such moments reveal complexities often overlooked within simplified historical narratives. Human relationships can develop even amid fierce political struggles. Neither leader achieved complete dominance over the other ultimately. The war continued producing victories, setbacks, and unresolved questions repeatedly. Gradually, participants recognized military success alone could not solve everything. The conflict was becoming something larger than battlefield outcomes themselves. After generations of warfare, a strange reality slowly became impossible ignoring. No side achieved the absolute victory originally imagined at first. Territories changed hands repeatedly while deeper challenges remained unresolved. Countless lives were lost pursuing goals that proved difficult sustaining. The human cost extended far beyond battlefields and political leaders. Entire communities carried memories of conflict for centuries afterward. Yet history rarely follows the intentions of those shaping events. Something unexpected emerged from the chaos of prolonged warfare instead. Contact between civilizations increased dramatically despite ongoing hostilities, ironically. Merchants followed routes opened by armies crossing unfamiliar regions frequently. Goods moved across continents alongside ideas, technologies, and cultural influences. Trade networks expanded, connecting societies previously separated by distance considerably. Knowledge traveled with travelers, scholars, diplomats, and curious observers alike. Mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and philosophy crossed cultural boundaries successfully. Intellectual exchange became one of the conflict's most lasting consequences. European scholars gained access to texts preserved and developed elsewhere. New perspectives gradually influenced education, science, and future innovation significantly. Cultural interaction proved stronger than many barriers created by warfare. Here lies the great irony hidden within the Crusades themselves. A conflict meant separating communities ultimately connected them more deeply. People who fought each other also learned from each other. The world emerging afterward looked remarkably different from before entirely. Not because anyone planned it, but because history transformed intentions. And that transformation would shape the future for centuries ahead. When the Crusades ended, their consequences continued unfolding across centuries afterward. Political borders changed, but deeper transformations occurred beneath the surface. Trade expanded dramatically between regions previously connected less frequently before. Merchants carried spices, textiles, technologies, and opportunities across continents regularly. Economic growth accelerated as new connections linked distant societies together. Commercial networks became foundations for future exploration and expansion globally. Knowledge moved alongside commerce, creating opportunities for intellectual advancement. Scientific ideas traveled between cultures through translation and scholarly cooperation. Innovations spread farther and faster than previous generations imagined possible. These exchanges influenced education, medicine, navigation, and countless other fields. The effects reached beyond kingdoms, affecting the trajectory of civilizations. History rarely confines consequences within the boundaries people expect initially. Some historians see indirect links connecting these exchanges to future renaissance. New knowledge encouraged curiosity, questioning, and broader understanding gradually. Cultural interaction became an enduring force shaping historical development profoundly. Yet memories of violence also survived long after battles ended. Communities preserved stories of suffering, sacrifice, heroism, and loss. Those memories influenced relationships between cultures for generations afterward significantly. Perhaps the Crusades reveal something important about human nature itself. People often pursue noble goals while producing unintended consequences unexpectedly. Swords may win battles, but ideas often shape the future. Armies crossed continents seeking victory, yet knowledge traveled beside them. In the end, ideas proved more enduring than conquest alone, and the world that emerged would never be quite same.